Hello and welcome to another edition of GRIDwrap, brought to you by us, Metaverse, on the lovely Somnolenta Sea. It's a balmy evening and I have two guests. Well, not two guests. I've got Tessa Harrington, the co-host. Hello, Tessa.
Hello.
And Ziggy21 Slade of Big Cake. Hello, Ziggy.
Good evening.
And we're going to be talking today about something I know is close to both their hearts, actually, which is about selling across grids, whether or not it's possible, what it is we could possibly do about it, how does it work, does the money work, how do you get stuff across, what happens to copyright, and Uncle Tom Cobley and all. So, Ziggy, Big Cake, you came into Second Life, 4 years ago?
Yeah, about time, yes.
And did you expect to be creating at that point?
Probably. I don't think I expected it to be, for me to do all the things that I've done since then. But my original aim for coming in, I was driven by the idea that I could make money here. I'd read stuff on the internet and, I thought, aha, maybe I could make some money here.
But you didn't know how to. Well, you didn't know how you would, you mean?
Well, not quite, but I had an idea you could do it, with Photoshop skills and 3D skills and that sort of thing.
So you had all those skills before you came in?
I think I've certainly learnt a lot since I've been here, but I did have some basic grounding in some of those, and quite a lot of experience really with Photoshop. Mm. So I did have a fair bit of experience.
So you've just said to us, but you didn't expect to do everything that you've done. Now, do you want to tell our audience what it is that you have done? Listen, audience, before we go any further, I call Ziggy21 Slade, to his face, the genius of the blindingly obvious. Because Ziggy is one of those very gifted people that sees what everybody else sort of passes over, which is the thing that people need, which is very, very simple. And it is one of those ideas, you go, why the devil didn't I think about that? Or maybe you have thought about it and just done nothing about it. Would you agree with that, Zig?
I think there's a fair amount of truth in that heavily veiled compliment.
Well, can we find out what Big Cake is? Because there's probably out there that don't know what you do.
Okay, Big Cake is basically, it's a big store, and it's actually shaped like an enormous cake. And the reason for this is just because I hoped it would be memorable. And inside, I sell all sorts of stuff, really, but basically seasonal and romantic type items. So I sell a lot of snow and ice and igloos and ice skates and things like that.
It's like a holiday shop.
Yeah, and I sell Christmas cards, and of course now I've got a whole load of Valentine's cards up ready to go, and Valentine's gifts and things like that. So it's a sort of it's a mixture really, like a cake.
Yeah,
it's got a whole load of stuff crammed in there.
There's the analogy. Gotcha.
I think he just likes weddings, actually, because what he hasn't told you is that it's shaped like a wedding cake.
Yeah, wedding cake. And we've also got a range of wedding stuff that I'm about to... I should really stop plugging myself. That wasn't really why I came.
No. The fact is we're going to be talking about trade. We're going to be talking about trade, Ziggy. And so you really need to give the background to your expertise, right? Which is in trading.
And I want to know, I've never been to your store. That's horrible, but I've never been to your store.
Okay,
so I had no idea.
I have got a floor available for a lot of wedding stuff that I'm developing. So I'm doing. It's actually principally a line of cakes to kick off with, but I'm going to add some other things to that as well, and hopefully some good quality animated items as well.
Are you going to make some? Do you make animations?
Well,
we do now.
Yes. Yeah, we do.
Oh, talk about learning new skills, huh?
Well, this is it. I mean, it's great to always be learning new things. And
It is.
I mean, the other thing I sell is I sell a range of animated textures that are aimed at builders as a builder's resource. Things like animated flames and water.
Excuse me. Sorry.
And then I also have a breedable pet called Crazy Kitties, which is a breedable kitten that's well, we launched that in November. It's been really
that Aussie animal. Sorry, I just had to.
I'm not because I didn't. Not only did I not copy their system, I deliberately tried to make something quite different to their system.
Good.
So I'm not. I didn't think twice.
Yeah.
I mean, as my understanding of it is, of how it's worked out, is that they, and this is only hearsay opinion, I have to say. I don't know.
Yes, and NBC divorces themselves of any of Ziggy's opinions.
But what I heard was that Osmos had actually lost the case. And the reason for this was that they claimed that they'd got the first breedable pet, and that it was a much wider claim that they were making. That because they had the first breedable pet, nobody else could make a breedable pet. But I have to say, I must add, I don't know how true that is. That's just
right.
Yeah, so that is quite possibly hearsay and only hearsay.
Yeah, because I think I would know that quite clearly because Stephen is the lead counsel for the other party, Amaretto, and I think he would have dropped that little bit of news on me.
Well, I would. When I heard it, I was quite surprised because I thought, well, I'm sure, I would have seen this in a public channel somewhere, on a blog or, quoted and reported somewhere.
And it could be true and just not finalized yet,
Yeah, so who knows? Who knows?
Well, it will be repeated by tomorrow, I should think. But actually, ladies and gentlemen, it's just hearsay, and it's we're not alleging that is fact yet. So
I've got a few. What I've tried to do is really stick my, get a few irons in the fire. I think in a micropayment type economy like this, you need to sell a lot of things. And that means either inventing the killer thing that's really, really popular, or making some nice things that people want to buy, but making a lot of them. And that's what I've tried to do, really.
Okay. Now, one of the things that made me invite you today, Ziggy, I've been meaning to invite you for a long time, is to do with the fact that Tessa and I have been talking over time in GRIDwrap about deliveries across grids and about how creators do that. And Tessa's been, very, very concerned about copyright infringement and copyright protection. And as more and more virtual worlds come across, I've just been looking at you and what you've been doing because I know you like a deal. And but I haven't seen you sally forth, as it were, unto other grids, that you've mainly stayed in Second Life. And I'm curious because I'm thinking, what isn't there? What is not tempting you across there to be an early adopter of those grids, of those open sim grids?
Well, I think for me, it's everything I do in a sense is, every day is a bit of a trade-off, if you like. There's a list of jobs that I want to do that I know need to be done. And, at the end of the day, that list is shorter, but it's never completely cleared. I've never got time to do everything that needs to be done. So I have to concentrate on what's likely to be most lucrative. And as I see it in the other grids, again, it's down to the way sort of micropayment economy works. If you've got 10,000 users online, maybe only 1% of them are going to be searching for a product that I sell, and of that 1%, maybe only 1% of the 1% are actually going to come into the store and buy it. And when it becomes so, you do need a large user base to make it worth investing in. All the time it takes to set up a store and put things on sale and all those sort of things. So I guess that's part of that. I'm not saying it can't be economically viable to do it. I'm just saying I have to pick the things that are most likely to be most economically viable.
Is it because you feel like you have to have a store in every single grid? Is that the problem?
Well, I guess I don't.
I mean, I can understand that. That would be overwhelming. The thought of having to set up a shop in every single grid.
Sure. I mean, I don't have to do that. That is kind of, it's kind of a little bit of a trademarky thing that I've done, in that I've tended to put, because of the nature of my products. I mean, they're not usually clothes, so I've tended to make sure I put all my stuff on display. And I think customers really appreciate that, and I think it's been a thing that's worked well for me. It's always seemed a shame to me that we have a 3D world, and yet a lot of the shops sell in 2D essentially, because you buy it from a picture on the wall. I mean, as far as clothes are concerned, there isn't really a better way of doing that. So I can understand that, and unless you have thousands of models for every outfit, but it does shame, I think, with other things that people won't invest in the prims and get the things out on display where people experience them.
Mal Burns has asked the question: do you create in-world or out-world and then import? And would you find that a factor in cross-grid deployment?
Yeah, I mean, I think I could certainly, make life easier. I guess I do both. I mean, I do quite a lot of, I make quite a lot of still pieces now for my own use. I don't usually own to sell, but just to put in objects that I then sell, rather than sell the sculpts as a resource. So I do a fair amount of out-of-world creation in that sense. And of course, all textures, creating stuff in Photoshop, that is out-of-world creation. But obviously I'd definitely be looking, if I was moving into other grids, I'd definitely be looking for ones that were going to, take what I'd got without any, without any problems script-wise or sculpt-wise or whatever.
Mm. What happens about, if you do sell across grids, what happens about the sort of actual financial transaction? Because not everybody's using Lindens, are they? I mean, everybody's got a different kind of...
You can't.
Yeah, exactly. So obviously everybody's got their own sort of transactional basis of their own kind of economy. So, I mean, what happens about that? Tessa, do you know what happens about that? I mean, how would you do it?
Yeah, just, there's a lot of economies out there, and they're all based on things that, unfortunately, a majority of them are not bank-backed. They're banked by individuals, and we've seen that before in Second Life. The results of that can be very scary because, there's no way to protect your funds, and also it can be quite illegal because I heard there was actually a case against Linden Lab for creating their own currency, and they lost, I heard. And this is, I haven't seen the legal
When was that?
But
when was that? Do you know?
I think that was the result where we saw Linden Lab say our money is not real money, it's just play money and has no value, and that was the result of that. But again, this is what I've heard. This is, the scuttlebutt, because we never hear anything from Linden Labs to tell us.
Yeah, we don't like dealing in scuttlebutt. So, because basically it's unreliable. And also, to my mind,
it's it's pretty logical. We unfortunately have to use common sense with Linden Labs because they don't tell us exactly what the reality is of the situation. But there's been a lot of speculation as to why they did that, and that would make sense as to why they would do it. There is the case, and it is very true that it is not legal to start your own currency without a bank backing or FDIC. There is definitely a problem with that issue. So,
So how do you do it?
I can only say what we've done, and that is to use completely backed by PayPal, which they put their money in a real bank, so they are FDIC backed. And it's something widely accepted. Yeah, there's people, especially, I don't know why in Europe, that it's not as fluid as it is in the United States. Therefore, there's some backlash on that. But I think people are just accepting that, there has to be some common denominator in trade, and PayPal and a few others seem to be the ones that have captured that audience. And, I think it's the legal and responsible way to do it. Because it also takes care of some of the VAT tax issues as well.
What do you think, Ziggy? Is there a responsible way to do it, or is it could it be a potential nightmare?
Well, I think as has been said, it's we've seen what can happen before. What happened with the banks here in Second Life, and people run off with billions of dollars.
It sounds like. Sorry. Go ahead.
So I think I would certainly be very careful about where I was putting my money. But I'd certainly be happy if PayPal were behind it. I'd have no problem then.
So you find PayPal very useful, don't you, Zig?
I do, and I haven't had any problems with PayPal, although I can understand it's probably a nightmare when you do. And I know some people do. And when something is as massive as PayPal is, there are bound to be issues and problems. But I haven't had a problem with them. And it is a good way, I find, to move money around. And, certainly if you're making money in world, you can get...
I can get universal audience, so you have to somehow work with that, right?
Well, this is it, and people sort of trust it now, I think, and for me, it means they have a top-up card that they do as well, which I've got, and you can top up from your PayPal account in 24 hours. So it basically means that I can sell Linden dollars that go instantly to PayPal, and then take them to my top-up card. So I can have Linden dollars in the game one day, and I can actually be spending them in the shop the next,
Right.
Which I think is fabulous.
Cool. That's something new, right?
It's
you had that
new,
yeah.
Well, I have
Is it
had
like our debit cards in the United States?
Yeah, it's like a prepaid credit card, that you can get in places. Exactly like that, but and it works exactly like one. Here you can go to a post office and top it up, and in certain, into a bank and things. Or if you want, as I say, you can top it up from your PayPal account. And I think it's the only one that you can do directly from your PayPal account.
Yeah, I use the debit card. I got that, and it's a dream because trying to pay through my PayPal account was just like crazy. So when we got the debit card, it was just I pay my bills through it. I pay everything with it. I go grocery shopping with it. And people look at it and say, "What's PayPal?" Cool. And then it starts that whole conversation. What do you do for a living?
It will be like that then, because it is it's not a credit card. You don't if you've got no money on it, you can't. Yeah, you can't spend any money, and there's no. There are charges attached to it if you draw cash from an ATM with it.
Right.
You have to pay, but
that's normal. That's normal.
Yeah, it's the normal ones, and if you use it abroad, you have to pay as well.
So, is the issue of you coming out of Second Life an issue of it's too complicated? it's too time consuming?
It's more the time that
Yeah.
I would say. It's just having the time to do it. You know, I don't have time to do everything I want to do here. And I think the problem for me is that as a business which has, you know, been lucky enough to grow in the time that I've been here, you know, I'm probably almost at the stage where I shouldn't really be doing a full-time job during the day in my real life, you know, and I should be devoting all my time to here, but I'm just not quite at that stage yet. So,
Right.
You know, maybe a few more months and I will be, and then I think then I can start looking at doing things like that. But it is really mainly an issue of time for me.
So if you saw a lot of your contemporaries going over and getting involved in OpenSim, would that nudge you like, boy, I should be there because everybody else is going?
Well, I mean, there was certainly a little rush to Inworlds a little while back, and I went and had a look, and a friend of mine actually gave me a little bit of space there so I could set some stuff up. But I've never got around to doing it. Just haven't had the time to do it. I've had other things to do. You know, I've been working on this breedable pet for the last year, and it filled my life, and I just haven't had time to be doing other things. But I must admit, I was itching to get over there when I started to hear people were actually managing to make a bit of money over there, and I was quite keen to do it. But as I say, I've had other things to do, and you know, I have to concentrate on what's going to make the most cash.
Well, you know, there's about 10,000 grids, either as small as 2 and as large as 500 out there. But the problem is trying to get a presence in every single grid, I'm sure, is pretty daunting for a designer.
So how does one attach that? I mean, really, what do? Do you set up a website and sell from a website? Is that what you do, and have to give maybe certain permissions for certain grids, or even blanket open permissions? What do you do about that? Is there a way around it?
Well, the thing you sell has to have been, you know, uploaded. The textures and the, you know, the prims and what have you have to have been created in that grid. So, you know, it has to be on that grid's asset server for that person to be able to access it. So you can't really sell directly from a website.
Yeah, actually you can, but...
You can you?
Yeah. Well, you still have to have some kind of storage system, obviously, but there's a way to automate that far easier. It's really quite easy, but I'm not going to go into it, obviously, for obvious reasons, because we run a business doing that. But there's really, once you set up your business, you know, preferably nudge and Spot on 3D would be a good choice. But once you do that, it's quite easy to port over to tons of other grids with a little bit of help and a little bit of organization. And, you know, then the web-based system can go everywhere, you know, and that's the whole idea behind Double Dutch Delivery, you know, is that it gives the grid owners a free economy, a lot of content, and gives the creators an easy way to expand. You know, that's the whole point behind it.
I didn't realize it worked like that. I thought you'd have to have you'd have to have a box in every grid to deliver.
You do, but there's a way to make sure that's exported quite easily, as opposed to the difficult thing of having, you know, trudging your stuff around. You know, there's a lot of ways you can expedite that, and we try to utilize that as much as possible.
But we've heard Ziggy say that he likes to put his stuff out. He likes to put his goods out for sale. I mean, and there's no easy way to replicate. I mean, it's, you know, even if you're putting stuff on eBay, it takes
it's just a matter of setting up. I think no matter what grid you do on, not just about us, but it's just a matter of setting up that first shop, and then after that, the grid owner like ourselves could, you know, give you a copy of your OR file. And if you literally wanted a shop in every single grid, you could. But you got to be sure that they're going to honor your DMCA. You got to be assured that they have a legitimate incorporation. You got to be assured they don't have a history of content theft or support that in any way, shape, and form. That's the scary part, I think, for creators, and what makes them go, no, because
well,
they just.
I think for me, what would be sufficient for me would be if that grid could be had a traceable real life address, an office address. I think if I could see that, then I'm happy.
Tell me something. Yeah, why? Why is it you need to see that? I'm acting as devil's advocate here, right?
Say it again. What do you need to see?
I need to see a real life
connections.
Address.
A real life connection, like give me an example.
Like a registered office.
Yes.
Oh, okay. That. You mean something like a replicating a retail establishment, right?
No, what Ziggy means is he needs the people who set up the virtual grid to have their credentials, their real life credentials.
Absolutely, yeah.
In a public place.
That's what I need, and the reason I need to know, I need them to, have a head office, an office at least, is so I can sue them if something goes wrong. That would be my thoughts. Really, would be, I think if they've got a published address. A legitimate business.
Right.
I'm not saying they're guaranteed to be honest, because not every legitimate business
it does hold their feet to the fire.
Honestly.
It holds their feet to the fire.
Yeah, it's a step in the right direction at least. But the problem is you can get in 15-year-old in his bedroom. You just don't know.
Well, Richard Branson was a 15-year-old in his bedroom.
Well,
wasn't
but
he?
He's an exception to the rule.
Perhaps I'm being fair to 15-year-olds in their bedrooms, but I guess what I'm trying to say is sort of, I'm thinking of a sort of a hacker type kid who would be, who's it for not positive aims,
Argy-bargy.
Yep.
So that's fair. But I think if someone's got a published address, I could see, a phone number or something I can call.
Yeah.
I'm happy with that. That's good enough for me.
And I think you should actually make the call, just to make sure the phone.
Yeah.
Somebody pick it up.
Make sure. Yeah.
Even snail mail. Somebody reading. Yeah.
Just that's all it needs. That's good enough. And they're a real life business. That's has to be operating with some sort of responsibility.
Right. Well, I've always argued that the creators are waiting for the second life. It's almost like second coming, and I've argued that why wait to be dictated where you're going to go. We saw from the hair fair sim here in Second Life that when creators gather together and kind of adopt, a certain place and a certain philosophy, it really does force everyone else to fall in line, because you have all the power as a creator. If you don't sell your stuff, these grids are lost, quite honestly. They don't have enough content, even Spot on 3D doesn't. And we've been hurting over this issue as well, because, it is a lot of work bringing things over. But wherever designers settle in, they're going to automatically get traffic. I think it's just a matter of deciding which grid offers the best service and the most security within reasonable bounds, and the ability to expand beyond that without being, feeling like you're being disloyal and stuff like that. I think once creators decide what that location is, that the rest will just fall in place, because these grids can't survive without content. The creators really underestimate their power, I think, in this whole situation.
Yeah, that's probably true. Most creators I talk to, I would say don't consider themselves to be in a position of any power. and definitely consider themselves to be in a position of being dictated. This is one of the reasons why I have my finger in so many pies,
Right.
because I know that a rule change could finish me overnight. Do you know what I mean? And so I try and hedge against that.
Yeah.
Well, if I haven't got this anymore, at least I'll have that.
Right.
Because you just don't know what they're going to do next that might terminate your business.
Right. So, how would you feel about having a conference for the creators? Because this is something Spot on 3D is gathering steam for right now, is a content creators expo over on Spot on, and also make it a charity event, and we're going to launch Music a Jam at the same time. But the idea is to give creators a platform to meet in kind of a neutral Switzerland area. To communicate with the grid managers, and the grid managers, grid owners communicate with them, and try to get some common ground running there for people, for designers to have a conversation with them. Is that something you'd be open to, Ziggy?
Yeah, definitely. Yeah, always up for a bit of debate.
Right, so where are you going to take it from here, Zig? I mean, I don't mean necessarily into Spot on 3D or anything else like that. What I mean is you've made an awful lot of different kinds of items. I mean, do you have anything that you could tell us about that you've got next on the go?
For a little.
Hello?
I think
Hello?
Have we lost him?
I'm still here.
Okay,
All right.
Here we go.
Did you hear the question?
You just suddenly went.
Oh.
I think we might have some technical difficulties, ladies and gentlemen. Just give us a minute. Thank you. We won't be a second here.
Hello.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah. Can you hear us?
Yeah. I can.
Okay. Don't get too close to the mic now, Zig. I think it's distorting, and that's what's happening. So you're coming in and out.
Oh, right. How's that?
Yeah, that's much better. That's much better.
Right. Okay.
Okay. Now, what was my question?
I'm sorry, I didn't ask the question. It was, where was I going next? Is that?
Yes,
is that,
thank you.
Well, where am I going next? Well, I'm working on another breedable pet, which will probably be later this year sometime. And I'm going to do this, get this wedding part of my store launched as well during the spring. Obviously, Valentine's is coming up, so we've got a lot of stuff just set up for that. And then I'm going to be working on some motion capture animation as well. So that's the main project for this year. Is motion capture, and see where that goes.
Yeah, I suppose I should declare an interest in that. Really, as we're doing this together. Basically, Metaverse is doing it effectively together, and with Ziggy and I,
Yes,
it's the hub of it.
Dousa and I are going to make sex animations together, aren't we, Dousa?
Oh!
Let me put it this way, ladies and gentlemen. If we do, it'll be a miracle. Something.
We will not be acting, will we? Just point that out.
Oh dear Lord! I think this is just going from bad to worse.
We are not the actors.
Basically, ladies and gentlemen, if you, I can't even answer this. It's completely got me stumped here. So that's that, really. Whether or not I'm going into that particular industry, I don't know, actually. I do know that we could be millionaires by Christmas if we ended up accepting all the offers that we do have in order to run certain kinds of channels for people. So I'm just going to leave that with you folks for now. Okay, so just moving on, because I'm going to start wrapping this up now. And what we do generally, Ziggy, and I know you've watched the program, but what we do normally is we say what's on our mind, where we're going, what's bothering us, or what's itching at the back of our minds, or what we've got on our brain, or, our next step is a cup of coffee. And we normally say a few sentences about that and what our hopes and fears and whatever are, what's bothering us. I'm going to ask Tessa to set off because it's quite good to do this by illustration.
Oh, okay. What was the question? Sorry.
Hopes and fears and what's on your mind.
Oh, hopes and fears. Well, my hope is that, that designers find a reason to come across, because it's a wide, it's a lot of really gifted grids out there, and my fear is that they won't survive if the content creators don't find a way that is reasonable for them to expand beyond the market here in SL. And I think that kind of leverages also Linen Labs. Because if they know there's other options for designers, then that kind of makes them pay more attention. So I think it's a smart move for creators strictly for that reason, to kind of keep the feet on the fire, the fire on the feet to the Lindens as far as that's concerned. So maybe the decisions are less volatile for them.
Okay, Ziggy.
Oh dear. I guess my main hope is that this year, I think we could do, as creators, we could do with having a bit of an easier year than last year. I think, as well as having to cope with a global financial crisis that everyone's having to deal with in at least some way that's working here. There was problems with search, there was Viewer 2, there was the new marketplace, there was just too much change. It was difficult to cope with it all. Do you know what I mean? And I just think we could perhaps do with a calmer, easier year this year. Although, of course, I realise it's Second Life and it's always going to change, and yay for that. But let's just have it a bit easier.
Maybe a little more heads up, and a little more talking to the designers and see what they want, huh?
And perhaps not this sort of. It always seems this sort of rush to release. Let's get it into beta, and I think that sometimes it's counterproductive. People take their time a little bit more, and give themselves more realistic deadlines to work to, and just let things take a little bit longer and be a bit more careful with them. But I don't know. Who am I to say? I'm not a programmer. A lot of this stuff is inevitable in programming. So that would be my main thing. It's just a bit easier this year than we had.
Thank you, Ziggy, and very well put. And we've just come to the end of the program, and I'm just going to say thank you to everybody on the sim and everybody in the audience. And I actually concur with what Ziggy said. It would be really nice to be able to sit and create at one's own pace. I don't think that's necessarily going to happen myself. I think technology is in a rush, and everybody's in a rush towards the same corner for some reason, as opposed to something wider. There are an awful lot of people out there with an awful lot of ideas, and it's a big wide arc, I see, rather than narrow funnel. But we might all get sucked down the down the rabbit hole before we finished. Just to say, sucked down the rabbit hole.
Right. Okay.
Sucked down the rabbit hole. Okay, as in Alice in Wonderland. Dear Lord. Okay. It just remains for me to add, keep your ears peeled about Spotted 3D's expo, their Creator Expo. And also Georgina Blackburn, who's in the TV chat channel, has pointed out that the Professional Virtual Designer Society exists to tackle some of the issues that we talked about today.
What about that?
No, so it might be worth Georgina and Tessa and Ziggy getting their heads together there. So goodbye to everybody, and we'll see you soon. Take care. Bye
Bye,
bye.
everyone.
Goodbye.